Well, it still applies, so that way somebody won't have their music playing in the background. Okay, let's see here. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the live stream is going. Madam Chair, I got one more member to let in. Okay, Madam Chair, you're ready. You can call to order.
All right. It is 5:02 p.m. on Tuesday, May 12th, 2020, and the City of Sugar Land Parks Advisory Board meeting is called to order. Please note that we have no items requiring a vote tonight, board members. However, during the Q&A following each presentation, I will call each of you in alphabetical order to see if you have any comments. That would avoid our talking over one another or perhaps having too much silence at any specific time. With that comment, number 2, public comment. Joe, has the city secretary received any written comments on agenda items for this evening?
No, ma'am, we sure haven't.
Okay, then we'll move on to item number 3, workshop. The first item is A, review of and discussion on City of Sugar Land streetlight banner and flag policy. Eric Oscarson, Assistant Director of Public Works.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Oscarson. I'm the Assistant Director of Public Works. I've been before you a few times. Today, I want to go through and provide an update on the streetlight banner and flag policy. Real quick, we'll go through it. But at the end of the day, this is a policy that dictates where the city places flags within medians. It looks at where we install banners along the streets. It also looks at where we place flags at facilities. This policy sunset back in July of last year, and we've been working through this with the City HOA Task Force. Received some feedback from them, and we want to bring that information to you to get your feedback as well before we start drafting what this new policy will look like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and talk about the current policy, where it stands today, and then talk about some of the things that we talked with the City HOA Task Force about. So currently, the current policy and the purpose of this policy is to set forth standards for procedures for the city's placement of streetlight banners and flags at city-owned public facilities and within the public right-of-way. Next slide, please. Public Works is currently responsible for the installation and the maintenance of banners, flags, and stands for seasonal celebrations and city celebrated achievements. Useful life of the banners are about 5 years. We do work with TxDOT to get permission to place flags and banners within the right-of-way of TxDOT roads, so that's State Highway 6 and 90A. And facilities responsible for flags at city facilities, except for PARCS. One of the things we'll be looking at is the current policy pretty much states that facilities is responsible for all the flags at city facilities, which is actually not true. Parks Department is responsible for all those flags. So that'll be an update that we'll be looking to make in this new policy. So that includes the American, Texas, and the City of Sugar Land flags. Next slide, please. So in the policy, we have procedures. So PW, Public Works, is to provide maintenance to all the flags and banners. Banners will be installed only on poles approved by Centerpoint. So Centerpoint owns the streetlights within the city. So we can only put them on poles that they approve because of the wind load. So we put banners along State Highway 6 along the median. We put them on FM 1876, which is Eldridge. And per policy, we're supposed to put them on University Boulevard as well as New Territory Boulevard. But if you've been down those streets, you'll notice that there are no flags there, or banners there, I apologize. And the reason for that is Public Works never received funding to install those banners. So there just simply aren't any banners there currently. Next slide, please. So banners are placed based on a seasonal schedule. So as you can see, there's 6 different seasons, and that's based on certain holidays and certain times of the year. Next slide, please. And this is a look at what those flags look like. So you have some spring flags. You have the flag for 4th of July, between Memorial Day and 4th of July. We have a summer flag, we have a fall flag, we have a holiday flag, and then we revert back to the Sugar Land, Texas flag. So Sugar Land, Texas, Imperial Sugar banner. So these are the 6 banners that we currently use. They are quite outdated. The graphics are very early 2000, and we're looking to update these and get some new designs, something that falls more along with the city's current communications plan and the look and feel of the new Sugar Land. Again, communications policy and branding. Next slide, please. Flags, when it comes to flag stands within the medians, they're placed in high traffic areas. We place flags out for President's Day, Memorial Day, Flag Day, Independence Day, and Veterans Day. Staff place them up first thing in the morning. We remove them in the evenings. Next slide, please. And this is an overview map of where we place flag stands and where we place banners. So if you look at the map, you'll see the green dots. The green dots are where we place flag stands currently. Those are those flags that have 5 flags in them. We put them out on the holidays. And then you'll notice the red line. Those are the streets that we currently place banners on. So if you're to notice, even the area north of 90A on State Highway 6, that's the one that crosses from the southeast to the northwest and heads north. That's State Highway 6. We have University Boulevard from 90A all the way down to the city limits. We have New Territory Boulevard, and to the north is Eldridge. So that's our current map of where banners are supposed to be. Again, we don't have banners on University or New Territory currently due to funding. Next slide, please. So facilities responsible for maintenance of flags. So these are the flags at facilities, again, except at the parks. The current policy does not state that, but we'll be looking to make that change to show that Parks is responsible for the flags at the parks locations. We observe the federal flag code with respect to the American flag, and these are located in all city facilities as listed. Next slide, please. And so marked here are the city facilities that are currently have flags at them. And we're not looking to make too many changes to this. This is pretty straightforward. The flags are located at city facilities and at city parks. And we will update it to make sure it states that the Parks Department is responsible for the flags at their facilities. Next slide, please. So like I mentioned before, this policy sunset on July 11th of last year. Staff has been recently approached by outside entities about expansion of the banner program. So people like Smart Financial Center, people like the Skeeters are looking to see if they can get involved in the banner game. Looking to see if they can put banners that would help promote their business or things going on at their facilities, possibly along State Highway 6 or along Lexington outside the Smart Financial Center. We also saw that there's a huge need for us to update the banners. The banners are old. They're over 5 years old. They're actually going on 10 years old. They're way past their life, their expectancy of 5 years. They're faded, and they're just outdated in general. We need to update them. So we started working with the City HOA Task Force and some internal staff. And so tonight we're asking for Parks Board to give some input on some initial conversations we've had and get some feedback so that we can incorporate it into the updated policy. Next slide, please. So back to flags, we'll go real quick. Flags are currently placed in the medians on specific holidays. That includes a flag stand and multiple flags. The flag stands hold 5 flags. And they're placed at intersections throughout the city. And we need to look to expand it. So if you looked at the original one, next slide, please. If we looked at the initial map, you'll see that the initial map, which is in the policy, doesn't include New Territory or Greatwood or even River Park or even too much in Telfair when it talks about those green dots that are flag stands. And so one of the things we're looking for is getting into additional locations, some guiding criteria what those locations would be, and look at making sure we include Greatwood, New Territory, River Park, and Telfair. Next slide, please. So some of the feedback we received from the City HOA Task Force was to get into some added areas, looking at making sure we stay on major roadways, doing entrances to certain neighborhoods, as you can see from the existing ones, and looking into getting the Greatwood, New Territory, River Park, and Telfair area. So the red dots are existing flags, as you can see. They're at, along State Highway 6, sometimes at the entrance to some subdivisions. So you're talking about areas like Williams Trace, out in front of Oyster Creek Park, at the entrance to the city, along Sweetwater Boulevard, First County Boulevard, which are entrances. And so what we did with direction from the City HOA Task Force, we said, okay, where can we add them and make sure New Territory is included, make sure we get the entrances into Telfair, look at River Park, and also look at Greatwood. So the green dots are locations that we have added based on one, current criteria, where we put them now, and how can we expand that west. So this is some of the proposed locations we've looked at. What I would ask for is before we get to the end, I don't want to get too far and have you forget about the flags. I would really love to hear some input now on thoughts about adding these flags locations, and then we can move on to banners. So Chairwoman, I'll let you kind of take the lead, but get some input on flags and where they might be able to go. I think you're muted.
Barbara, you're muted.
Barbara, you're muted still.
I apologize, guys. You can hear me now, can't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I had forgotten I had muted. I'm going to begin with our Vice Chair, Ho-Jin Lim. Ho-Jin, do you have any comments?
No comments from me. Looks good. The actual, other than those entrances, looks good to me.
Heather? Did Heather sign in?
I have no comments, Barbara.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, please respond back. I'd appreciate that. And unmute, as I noted, I had not. Joan?
I'm wondering how much money is needed to put, was that the banners that they ran out of money?
So yeah, the banners are, we currently don't have the funding. We haven't received extra funding to put the banners around University and New Territory Boulevard currently. This expense for flags, it's about $400 a flag stand. So these are 11 locations, so it'd be about $4,400. That's the initial investment. It's not a big investment, and we can easily put them there. Overtime wise, it's an extra half hour to an hour for the staff to put them out in the morning and the afternoon. That's not a big financial impact. And the ongoing maintenance is we replace a flag here and there as they become tattered. So this part of the policy is pretty cheap to implement overall. And it's something we would be able to do in the next fiscal year if this is what we wanted to move forward with.
Okay, thank you, Eric. So I'm all for it. I think it's a beautiful way to have people who go through Sugar Land, the different areas, see all the different possibilities for our beautiful city. So I love it.
Right.
Eric, am I correct that we are now just offering comments on flags?
Yeah, we'll get into banners here in a little bit. We have some more details on banners, additional places to install banners. You'll see it's greatly expanded. And I'll get into a little more details about banners after we do the flags.
Okay, very good. Then we'll move on to Kelsey Johnson.
Looks great to me.
Thank you, Kelsey. Kelsey Lowe.
Looks good to me too.
Good. Love your background. Andy? Andy Pan?
Hi. Yes, I think it's a great start. I mean, I bet everyone loves more everywhere, but given the certain circumstances, I think it's a great kind of way to sprinkle everything through. And like Joan said, it's good to kind of show the branding and know it's Sugarland. But yes, I think everything looks good.
Oh, thank you, Andy. Tracy?
Oh, did I? Hi. It looks good.
Oh, good, thank you. Kelly Reynolds?
I just had one question. Our subdivision, I'm in First Colony. I think First Colony pays for the flags in front of my neighborhood, but I'm not sure about that. Are the HOAs going to participate in costs on this?
So your HOA may place flags within its own internal in the subdivision. The city takes care of the ones on the major roadways. That's one of the criteria we're looking at defining, is that it has to be on like State Highway 6, a 90A, a 59. That's kind of the new branding of where we want to put these. We will not be working with the HOA. If the HOA wants to put them internally, that's something they can do, and we encourage them to do so, and a lot of them do it. Greatwood currently places them at the entrance on Greatwood Parkway and on Salisbury, where we're looking to place them. We would be working with them and saying, hey, we'll take over doing it if you want to place them internally in the subdivision where they could. But we're trying to stick to major thoroughfares and not getting too far into the neighborhoods themselves.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you all. And I think it's a really uplifting program, and I really noticed that on all the holidays. It's a big deal to see that, because we're fortunate enough to have enough of them around right now. Delighted we'll have more. Please proceed, Eric.
Very good. Can we get the slides back up and move to the next slide? Very good. Next slide, please. So currently our banners are over 5 years old and are definitely in need of updating. They're very early, late 1990s or 2000 kind of design. Not all the areas in the community have been included in the past. Again, we'll talk about Greatwood and New Territory, River Park, Telfair need to be expanded. Again, we have been approached by outside entities looking to install banners. They really want to start marketing some of their areas and what they have to offer, including Skeeters, which are looking to do obviously Skeeters games, also holiday lights and things like that. So there's definitely a push to start looking at working together with them. So we need to look at what's the intent of the program, are there new areas to be added, and then what does the messaging look like? So we've been working a lot with internal staff, with our communications department, our public affairs department, as well as the City HOA task force to get some of their feedback. Next slide, please. So we added this kind of as our main statement for this banners. This is something we worked on internally. And so we want to determine a communication strategy to build a sense of community by promoting the cultural arts, celebrating traditional holidays and seasons, and promoting tourism within the city of Sugar Land. And some of the comments we made were some of the main reasons would be to provide a sense of community. We want to promote the cultural arts. We want to celebrate seasons and promote tourism. Those are the big four areas that we looked at, wanting to make sure we encompassed with this new banner program. Next slide, please. And so again, the red areas, the red roads are the roads that are currently in the policy. And what I'll do is I'll show you here in a minute a map that we recreated that kind of highlights some more of the city and areas we think we should be promoting. So things we looked at was what streets should be included and why should they be included? Should we allow special banners in certain locations? Do we allow different banners in different parts of town? Say, does Highway 6 north of 90A have banners because they're associated with the Skeeters? Should the Lexington area around Smart Financial have different banners because it's around Smart Financial and it's an entertainment district? Is that going to be different than what you would see possibly on Eldridge, on the north side of town? We also looked at, do we start bringing in major event producers? So Constellation Fields and Smart Financial. Next slide, please. So here's an updated map. And so what we tried to do is we tried to look at areas that are major corridors. I know it's a lot to take in one shot, so I'll give you a second to look at the map, and I'll go through some of that information with you here in a second. But we looked at major corridors. Everything would be commercial, not residential, and you'll see some of these little small spots kind of dive into residential. We want them to be high visibility. We want them to be in entertainment areas, and we want them, this is the one part, entrance to neighborhoods. So small sections of roadway that would be an entrance to a neighborhood, something you see before you get into the actual residential area. So kind of working north to south. So in the northeast section, you'll see that's Derry Ashford. That's an entrance into the city. People coming from Stafford on that side of town would come in through that area, or to the north from Houston. We really like the idea of having, if you're coming down Derry Ashford through that town, that would be an entrance way in. Again, Eldridge is already included, and then State Highway 6. 90A is highlighted now. This is an area that we had not put banners in the past, but we do have poles all through the median. And we thought we could put some banners through there, which would really highlight that, hey, if you're driving down 98, you are now in Sugar Land. This is what Sugar Land looks like. We still have University Boulevard on there. And then some of these small streets on the north side, you'll see along 98, that's a small entrance into new territory. It's a real small stretch. That's commercial right there. That's, again, turning in. You'll know you're in Sugar Land, and then it'll disappear as you get into the neighborhood. Same thing with off of 99. You'll see an entrance into new territory. You'll see entrances into River Park. And then the same on the southwest where you get into the entrances into Greatwood. You'd have some small stuff before you get into residential. Again, University Boulevard's included the whole way. That section in New Territory Boulevard is included before you get into residential. And then near Smart Financial, we have Lexington included. Does not include the area that's in residential, but does pick up when you head from Lexington between Sweetwater Boulevard and State Highway 6, because that's a huge commercial area. And so you'll see some of these different areas that we pick up wanting to put banners. And again, there was a big conversation we had internally about making sure we stayed out of residential, stick to commercial, and work on those types of areas. Next slide, please. And the intent of the banners, again, we're sticking to themes of community pride, theme series for cultural events, diversity events when we get into certain holidays for different cultures, seasons, kind of like we do now, destination venues, Constellation Field, Smart Financial, even talking about would we put stuff up near down State Highway 6 or down 98 if we're having big events at the Festival Park, holidays, and then any type of signature events. So these are some of the things that we're talking about, why we would put banners up. But these are the different things that we've had some discussion on, and we'll get your feedback on. Next slide, please. Just to give you some ideas of some banners we were talking about, this is nothing too specific, but these are some of the mock-ups we did. So we want to make sure the policy allows us to put up different banners for different things to get the word out. So obviously right now the whole census is going on. We would put these kind of banners up during certain times, get the word out to all the residents. Same thing with the GO bonds. We could do something like that. And then the one on the right is really something new that we're talking about. Is these are the banners we'd have up more on a regular basis that really talk about what Sugar Land's all about. Sweet, real, refined, which is kind of the message for the Visit Sugar Land and the Economic Development Department. So these are the type of the banners we're looking at. These are more of the designs we're looking at versus kind of those older designed ones. And we redoing them about every 5 years. Can you go back one slide? Thank you. Madam Chairwoman, I'll let you kind of take over from here, but I know I went over a lot of things with banners. I would love input from everybody on the locations of banners, if you like what you're seeing, if you have thoughts, and then also what the banners would be used for. So community pride, these kind of different main categories that we're looking for. I'd really love some feedback so we can take it back and refine the policy.
Thank you, Eric. Again, per Eric, as I call your names, think about locations and theme and any other comments, of course, that you might have. And we'll begin with Vice Chair Ho-Jin Lim.
We might have to come back to me, but for now, what I do have a question regarding, is this, I guess the ordinance being updated, is it going to the public for comments, public comments as well?
So this is an interdepartmental policy. It is not a citywide policy. So this policy is designed to give direction to staff on how we put up the banners and how we manage all that. So this is not something that's going out to the public. We are using the City HOA Task Force and the Parks Board to guide us.
Okay. So one comment I could think of is along 59, there's multiple exits, and a lot of the cities actually have notifications that, hey, you're entering into our city. Is something that we could do for all of this. I know this is a lot, but this is more of a wish list thinking here. Having some type of banner or some notification that you're still in Sugarland throughout the exits from the highway, basically down 59 or even going northbound. And that's just a suggestion because it's from what Beltway 8 essentially all the way down to 99. So if we could balance something out in terms of having something as people drive through 59, so you could see Sugarland, because I know that Stafford has their marker, that pyramid, that point pyramid, that have that marker as part of their identification. And I was hoping maybe we have something similar in terms of a banner or some other notification process. Hey, this is Sugarland.
Yeah, if you notice on the monuments for when you get into Sugarland, the exits for the monuments, the Imperial Sugar logo, the city logo is on all of our monuments. So it's very similar to what Stafford does. Stafford has those illuminated lights, but we actually do have the logo, the city logo is on all of those pillars as you go up and down 59. So we have something similar to that. It's tough for banners because banners have to go on street lights, and there's no major street lights along that 59 frontage. But no, it's noted, and it's something we can continue to take a look at.
Thank you.
Heather Dillon.
I like the locations and the themes. I did have one quick question regarding, will there be any funding coming from the sponsors such as Constellation and the Skeeters or?
Yeah, so the intent would be that they have any interest in installing banners that are benefiting their facilities, they would be funding those. So we definitely will be looking to them to pay for those, and most likely with the agreement, they would actually pay for the overtime to have them installed and removed and updated. So there will be an agreement put in place where they'll be funding those as we move forward. And economic development will help fund a lot of these because it's a driver for tourism. So those are the funding mechanisms we're going to be looking at moving forward.
It looks good. Thank you.
And we'll talk more. You'll see this again.
Yeah.
Joan Hanson.
Okay, so first of all, locations. I think that if you're at Smart Financial, you already know it's there. So I think the flag should be in opposite places of the venue so that people are aware of it. In other words, if you're, like I said, if you're at Smart Financial, you know it's there. Secondly, I love that there's eye candy at the streetlights, and I love the banners and the flags. I love that. So some things that come to mind with regards to themes. We're the tree city. I'd love to see us celebrate the accolades that we've received nationally. So we're a tree city. We have developed art in public places. Maybe we could have a banner that reflects the beautiful mosaic at the festival site, or the other sculpture that turns at the airport. Maybe somehow one of those banners could be indicative of our love of the arts. And then education. I think we have fabulous schools, and maybe one of the banners could reflect a contest that young people enter to give their insight and their creative ideas about what the city of Sugar Land is for them. It's home, but how is it home for those kids? And maybe we could have a contest that lets one banner be the kids expressing themselves and their love of the city. And that's all, and I love it. Thank you.
Very good. Just to respond to that, one of the things that we talked about was the theme series for cultural events. Just as we're doing the traffic control boxes you've seen throughout the city, we've had people submit designs. One of the things that we're thinking about would be we would do a similar thing when we would have artists actually create the banners and do something like that. So great feedback. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Joan. Kelsey Johnson.
Great, I'm really excited about this project. I noticed on the design for the city of Sugar Land, the one on the far right that has the collage of the different things that we're identifying as Sugar Land. I would love to see if that could be interspersed with more dominant images. So it's really hard sometimes with the collage. It's a little busy when you're driving by it. So maybe you introduce that, but then you have edge to edge, full bleed photographs or imagery and maybe like a catchphrase or something where you're saying something about the parks or something about education or something that you've shown in those. So they're interspersed in a particular sequence. So it's not the same banner, 5 times in a row. That would really be my only feedback in terms of just varying the content and making it really dramatic and inviting.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelsey. Kelsey Lowe.
I definitely second Joan and Kelsey's comments. When I've seen banners in other cities, the best ones tend to be the ones designed by kids. They're always the most colorful and kind of the most impactful. They also tend to be the most locally relevant, assuming that there's been a good selection process involved. They certainly do catch the eye. I also really second the idea of creating very simple, visually striking banners. The collage is great if you're able to walk up close, like say around Town Square. But if you're driving, it's kind of going to get lost. And this is perhaps a personal interpretation, but it feels a little corporate-y, a little sterile. So having those nice, big, bold, especially art celebrating or nature celebrating, architectural celebrating, sort of local, big, bold, simple things, I think that really catches the eye a little better than simple photo collages, although of course they have their place. I think that's all my comments.
Thank you.
Andy Van.
Okay, so quick one right here. Everything that everyone said, but focus on the simple and bold. Not too cluttered, not too, I like the whole thing about how certain districts get their identity. So kind of making the way that they stand out from each other. But like I said, it has to be simple and very bold because you don't want to make it too complicated. It's like, Kelsey Lowe said earlier, it's hard to see when you're driving down the road and then, you see a bunch of clutter, you're like, well, I can't make heads or tails out of it, and you just drive right by it. So it's just like after a while, that boldness just repeats after a while, you're like, oh, you get it. So anyway, it's something to consider about, but I think so far your location and the kind of themes that you're putting out is a good start and makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Tracy Pipes.
I agree. I like the bold colors. I think if we're far away from the banners, I don't think that pictures are really relevant there. And I like everybody's ideas so far.
Great, thanks, Tracy. Kelly Reynolds.
I agree with everything everybody has said so far, but I want to add, there were images, I never actually got to see them, but images that were produced in conjunction with the 60th anniversary sort of personal histories, I think, for the city. And those might be appropriate if they're, kind of the faces of Sugar Land. Again, going back to that idea of bold, you don't have to put a name or anything with it, but just a bold visual. That might be something to consider. And the other thing is, with regard to the commercial interests, I'm it doesn't matter to me so much about where they are, let's say if it's Skaters or Smart Financial, but is there going to be a limitation on how many there are? So for example, with the Skaters, would they be spread all over Sugarland, or would they just be limited to the area where the stadium is? Do you have some ideas on that?
Yeah, so we've had discussions about it. Nothing's set in stone. I think we had talked about Skeeters was asking specifically in their area. They wouldn't be all over town. You wouldn't see Skeeters all over town. It would be more in the vicinity of their area. The banners, if you get into banners for other organizations, other cities that we've talked to, you see them, in the general vicinity of that facility. So the intent would be in that area, they would be able to put those types of banners up in the vicinity. So that State Highway 6 area would be pretty much that stretch along pretty much north of 90A to the city limits would be where they would be putting their banners. So they wouldn't be able to come through and buy every banner in town and you'd see Skeeters all over town. It'd be very specific to their region.
Great, thank you. And also just to say, I love Joan's idea about the kids contest.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. I think all the ideas are great, and I'll have to say ditto. And am I correct, Eric, that we will continue to have two banners right next to each other on the poles, and they only can be a certain size because of the wind factor?
Correct. So the banners, we are having discussion about if we were to put banners along stretches of road that did not have poles in the middle, and they only had poles on the side of the road, there would be a single banner on the side. That's still a discussion. It's at the early stages. It really depends on where we want to put them. But they would be, most of the time, they're going to be in the median, on poles in the middle with double banners next to each other. And that's the plan moving forward. So,
Well, in that regard, then, something that has always interested me is why do we have to have a duplicate banner on two banners that are duplicate of each other? I'd rather see our name, Sugarland, much larger on one side and whatever the message is on the other,
Sure.
because there's so much missed. The website address at the bottom or whatever small print at the bottom, and as somebody else pointed out, too many photos or too much artwork. You can have an accident trying to figure it out when you're going by.
Sure.
But everybody's ideas were great. Really neat, great discussion.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Does that conclude then your presentation?
I believe so. I'm trying to, it's hard because I'm not controlling I don't get to control it. Next slide, please. Yeah, so today we are going to, I have received all your comments. I'm going to be putting that together. We're going to review your comments with internal staff and the task force. The task force does meet at the end of this month. We're going to make updates to the current policy, and then we'll have more of a draft policy to bring back to the task force and the Parks Advisory Board. Once we have kind of the sign off from both groups, then we'll be bringing it back to council. So again, this is a policy. It's an internal policy that we use to guide staff, but it really is impactful, and I appreciate everyone's time today, and hopefully everybody is well, and we'll be back in probably about 2 months to bring you back a full policy.
Thank you very much, Eric. Now moving on to item B, review of and discussion on the Senior Center Needs Study Project. Kimberly Terrell, Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation.
Good afternoon. The first slide, please. So we're looking at the Senior Center and the Senior Center Needs Study that is proposed for this upcoming fiscal year. Currently, our membership has kind of, we're outgrowing our space. Every time the program has grown and moved, we've quickly filled up that space, and we feel like we're there again. We've identified this in the Parks, Rec, and Open Space Master Plan, and we've identified the need for this study due to the growth. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we're kind of running out of space. Our participants have grown tremendously and grown and doubled. And if you've been to a class at the Senior Center, you know that the popular ones are, they're bursting at the seams. They're kind of, there's a wait list occasionally, and there's a need for larger classes or for more classes. And those classes, they vary in size. Some of our bigger ones are 60 to 80 people, and those are often very full. And our classes, they're taught by volunteer instructors, and they're free, and so they're very popular. Next slide, please. This is just a slide showing our demographics. When we plan for things, obviously we're planning for the next 10, 15, 20 years. So we need to look at kind of where we are now, but where we're going to be. This map shows our current distribution of our seniors at our center. And you can see they're all over the city. Next slide. This is kind of interesting. We often do benchmarking, and the city of Sugar Land is tied for the highest percentage of seniors out of these 15 benchmark cities that we've looked at, we benchmarked Sugar Land against. So we have a population, we have a need for our seniors. Next slide. So the focus of the study, it's not just looking at our existing center, but we need to look at where our existing center is versus what the demand is. When looking at this and looking at the existing building, we need to see, are there opportunities and constraints for the existing building in that area? For example, can we expand the existing building, or are we out of space in our existing site? We also need to look at what our unmet needs are. Maybe we have programs that we can't offer because of the space, because of the constraints there. And then we're doing benchmarking of best practices for senior programs and facilities. So we're looking at some of those neighboring cities and some of those are benchmark cities that we looked at in that past chart. And what are they doing? What do their facilities look like? What do their programs look like? What are they offering their senior population? As I mentioned, we're looking at alternative locations as well, because maybe we want to build a center that just doesn't fit on the existing site. And that's something that we'll be looking at heavily in this study. And then cost estimates based on those options. But one of the most important things, as with this study, as with any study that we do, is to get public input to understand what are the needs of the community, the present community, the future community, and just really gathering that input, similar to what we did in our Parks, Rec, and Open Space Master Plan. Next slide, please. So public engagement is important because we need to identify what those gaps are. What are our gaps in our facilities? What are those gaps in our programming? And we need to engage as much of the public as we can. So we're looking at some of the groups that we can engage to get that information. Existing members, of course, are extremely important, as are instructors, but we also need to reach our non-members, because we need to determine what is it maybe that we're not offering that would get you to the center that doesn't attract you to the center now. So we need to identify those non-members as well. And getting this public engagement will hopefully build community support for a future senior study and for those needs. And it may introduce the senior center to people that for some reason may not even know that it exists. So there's a little bit of a public outreach in here as well. And then we'll also incorporate all of the feedback that we've already gathered in the Parks, Rec, and Open Space Master Plan in this study. Next slide, please. So this is just showing what groups we are planning on targeting for the public input. Staff is obviously essential. Staff hears from our members every day, and they have insight in maybe what the center would need. Our instructors are also a tremendous resource, as are our existing members. But we'd also like to identify groups that we can reach out to that may have seniors involved in those groups. Because again, we want to reach people that aren't existing members or instructors. We want to reach as many people as we can. So we were considering churches, HOAs, and community groups, but also organizations, big organizations such as the Exchange Club or the Lions Club. Then, as always, we'll reach out to the general public, both online and via an open house. And obviously, we'll get y'all's input as well. Next slide, please. So what we're asking you today is, do you concur with this approach? Do you concur with us going toward, focus groups, open house, an online town hall like we did the Parks and Rec Open Space Master Plan? And then are there any specific groups that you can think of that you would like us to approach for that feedback? And Barbara, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Again, we're going to be giving them information on the approach that has been presented, as well as the specific groups for which there'll be outreach. And we'll begin again with Vice Chair Ho-Jin Lim.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Well, first of all, I think that's great that the increase 300%. That's tremendous over the period of time that I know we've been on the board. And but as far as the approach, I think y'all nailed it on the head there. It's a great approach in terms of what y'all are doing, and I think you pretty much captured it from my viewpoint of the different groups that you could target. So I think y'all are right on.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Ho-Jin. Heather Gillen.
Yes, I agree. I think the approach is good. Just some comments regarding some suggestions for outreach. I was thinking, I know my parents are senior citizens and they do use Facebook a lot. So maybe even the city posting some comments on the city's Facebook page, or even, they like to be met in person. So whenever there's like a city event, community event, maybe there's like a Sugarland booth typically there. So maybe even having those, reaching out to people and asking those questions during a community event would be a good idea. And then the other thing regarding the study, just maybe another idea is, are you guys looking into any kind of transportation opportunities for the seniors to get to the center? That might be something you'd want to consider.
Yes, transportation is one of those things that we've talked about as being kind of an input and a question that we'll ask folks. Yes.
Okay, great. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Heather. Joan Hanson.
I think the approach is great. Y'all have targeted all of the groups, and I think you've done your due diligence. So I can't think of any other group that you haven't approached, or can't think of anybody else. And I'm in favor of looking at the site and enlarging it. I don't know if that's something I can input here, but that's just my thoughts, because I like where it is. I haven't gone there yet, but I like where it is.
You're welcome anytime once we're open.
Thank you, Joan. Kelsey Johnson.
Yeah, I just had a follow-up question in terms of when you'll begin rolling this out, when you're going to be receiving that public input. I definitely concur with the others in terms of it's a great approach. I just wonder about this season, the stay-at-home kind of season that we're in, and how that might be adapted in this time.
Right. Well, we've talked about that, and we really feel like to get the maximum input that we might want to wait a little bit to give. It's sort of a difficult time to get public input. We'll probably want to wait just a little bit until maybe we can weather this storm and get past this.
And I just have one more comment, because I wonder if some of the things that we're learning in this season will be applicable to how we do, indoor gyms and recreation and different centers. And so I just wonder if there are other resources or people kind of speculating on what is kind of the new normal, what's that going to look like, and what are best practices for cities to put into place for that, for people's health and safety ongoing.
Absolutely. And we have, I'm going to brag on my staff a little bit. We have quite a tremendous online via Zoom exercise class schedule currently, exercise and art class, and many different offerings right now. And we've been talking about that. How can that continue in the future? Even if we do have in-person classes, could we then also offer an online version of that as well? So we are brainstorming a little bit, and this COVID has taught us different ways to reach out to people. So we are thinking of those things as well.
Thank you, Kelsey. Kelsey Lowe.
Everything that everyone has said sounds great so far. I especially like Heather's idea of reaching out to people at big public events, because I know that's a great way to reach a large audience. You probably already mentioned it, but I can't remember explicitly seeing it. Did you mention putting information out at public libraries, at public health facilities? Because I know that's a place that I often see seniors, certainly in my communities up in Canada. And that may be one way to reach out to folks who might slip through the cracks in other places.
Great.
That's my
Thank you.
Great ideas. Thanks, Kelsey. Andy Fan?
Yes, to jump on what Kelsey Lowe said, yeah, those health facilities or so, putting awareness out there in medical centers area, but also back to what Heather said, it sounds good. Social media generally, I think, put it out there because, you have friends and family that might, be looking for something and you catch them right at the optimal moment. But everything else seems good. You've covered your bases and sounds good right now.
Okay. Thank you, Andy. Tracy Pipes.
I agree. I love what Heather said about the social media, and then also about special events, because you want to capture the younger audience too, the children of the seniors. And I think that's a great way, because somebody might need a little push to get them to go do something like that that's more social, get them more active at the senior center. I also liked the idea of combining our new, online classes. I think that's a great way to keep costs down for the city. And, then you don't have to have an actual place to have the class. And then we maybe could just not enlarge the space so much or not have satellite locations, and that would save money, I think.
Thank you, Tracy. Kelly Reynolds.
Just going off what Tracy said, I had thought about satellite places and, wonder there's some very large big box store spaces that are kind of sitting empty around Sugarland. So I don't know if that's a consideration if you do end up going to satellite locations, but just a thought there. Also, as far as reaching out to people, I've seen a lot of seniors at the council members' open houses. So whenever those come up again, I think that's an ideal place to kind of put this out there and get feedback. And lastly, can we send you lists for groups to approach? Because I've seen, I don't even know them all, but I've seen recently some interesting lists of organizations that are active in Sugarland and Fort Bend County that seem like they would have, lots of seniors is a nice way to say it.
Sure, you can send that to Tricia.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Along with this project, you're also, I assume, going to be looking at policies, for example, the age requirements for use, the membership cost, that will also be a part of this whole process.
Yes.
Very good. And for construction, are you looking at fiscal year 21 or fiscal year 22?
It'll probably be further than that. We don't have a definite date yet, and we'll update y'all as we move along.
Oh, very good. Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you.
And do you have any further slides that you need to share with us? PowerPoint, that's it. Okay, very good. Then we'll be moving on to item 3C, review of and discussion on parks infrastructure and rehabilitation projects. William Hodgick, Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation.
Thanks, Barbara. Good evening, Parks Board. Thank you. Little background information on the park infrastructure and rehabilitation projects and funding. Heavy use of our parks and rec facilities results in wear and tear over the life of the facility asset. Funding is set aside annually. It can vary from year to year. Typically, the history, our average funding has been around $200,000 per fiscal year. The funding allows parks to address rehabilitation issues as they arise, and ensures the facility assets remain attractive and functional while preventing the need of costly or emergency repairs in the future. Next slide, please. Staff analyze a list of projects, potential projects, and prioritize them based on existing conditions, level of urgency, potential cost, and available budget. We also refer to the 2014 park assessment that was done in conjunction with M2L Associates and a 2018 State of Infrastructure assessment that was done by park staff and KPMG, and that was done citywide, not just in parks and recreation. Next slide, please. Okay, so getting into some examples of some rehabilitation projects that we've done over the last couple of years. A big one, a fun project, was the replacement of the well-used Eldritch Playground. It was about 19 years of age, which is about the typical life expectancy of a playground that's this heavily used. Our staff did multiple repairs on it to keep it safe, and it was just becoming to where it was just parts were hard to find, and we needed to replace it. Next slide, please. So with that, we worked with a local vendor, Fun of Bounds, and replaced with a really nice park playground. It's there now at Eldritch Park. It's very heavily used. It includes 2 Viper slides, a climber, and we really went up with this playground to try to get really the most bang for our buck with the space that we had. It includes a 15-year warranty. That was a fun project. Next slide, please. Another one of the projects that we did in fiscal year 19 was we had some issues at the city park with the lighting, the sports lighting out there. If y'all remember, Joe mentioned this a couple of times in some of his director updates. Those lights at City Park are probably some of our oldest sports lighting that we have in all of our parks. So we really needed to look at what's the plan to start replacing some of these fields with some more updated, newer lights. Next slide, please. Really fun project. We did this. We replaced Furley Field lighting, converted all the old metal halide lamps to LED lighting. Let's go. It's reduced the spill significantly, and it's really lowered the maintenance and the energy costs. Sugarland Little League pays for partial of the utility bills at this park because Sugarland Little League utilizes this city park. And so they were really happy to see that this efficiency lights were coming in. And they've also reached out to me and they've expressed their delight and how easy it is to schedule the lights to come on and off via online controls. And they love the light output efficiency. So there's a picture at nighttime on your right, just showing how bright they really are and how down the lights really are pointing down and not out. And you're really focusing the light where it needs to be and not on the surrounding neighborhood. Next slide, please. Okay, so we get into this fiscal year. We've been really working really hard at utilizing our funding this year. We started in October, November, in the pool season, off season. We replaced the old diving boards at City Park Pool. We had tried to repair them, and we were successful for a number of years, and then we just could not keep repairing them. They were just too far damaged. So repairing was no longer an option. As you can see, quite a bit of rust there in those pictures and some bracket failure. Just really getting to be unsafe. Next picture, please. So this off season, we had a wonderful opportunity in January. We initiated a contract, got Progressive Commercial Aquatics out there to replace the diving board stands and the diving boards. And they come with the 2 and 3 year warranty, and they're stainless steel. So they should last a very long time. Next slide, please. Another big project that we did this year was the skate park at City Park. Was in really desperate need of replacement. It really had kind of exceeded its life expectancy, really. Bolts were becoming unbroken. My staff was having a harder time repairing them. Parts were hard to find. It really needed, and that park is really utilized a lot. If you go out to City Park, you can really see skaters are on there pretty much all the time. I'm driving out there, and I know even the weekends it's even more. And then this is also a facility that has our skate jam every summer that recreation hosts. Next slide, please. So we informed the users at the skate park with this informative poster to gain feedback. Tricia helped me a lot with that. The feedback was very positive of this new design. We did take it to City Council. It was approved in January. And we just recently installed it. Right in the middle of this COVID-19, the contractors came out just a few weeks ago, and they worked out there a little over a week, and they got rid of all the old decking components, and we replaced it with this brand new, these brand new components. Next slide, please. As soon as COVID-19 restrictions are starting to lift, right now the skate park's closed, but as the future phases roll out and we can start opening things back up again, I'm sure the skaters are going to love this park. As you can see, it's got single surfaces, so there's no transition plates to wear out or to become uneven or dangerous. It's a 20-year warranty. Some of the parts are concrete, very heavy duty, very well installed. It even has a half pipe so to implement some fresh and new ideas to the skate park. I think it's going to be a real hit when we open this back up to the public. Next slide, please. Another project that we did in-house was using the rehabilitation funding. We received some granite, and my staff implemented that granite at several of the trails in our parks. A lot of it went to Memorial Park, and you can see that over time DG does wear down, and it does erode, and it does settle. And in order to repair that, we needed to bring quite a bit of DG in. Next slide, please. Utilizing the rehabilitation funding, we were able to bring in close to 200 yards and spread it all in-house, all in-house labor with our new dump trailer you see there in the background. I call that my Christmas present. We got that right at the beginning of the fiscal year. So we were able to really get all that DG down really efficiently, and the trails really do look fresh and nice out there. And it's great for upcoming Memorial Day coming up too. We also did a lot of parking lot striping in the parks that were faded, and you can see that picture on the right. So we really try to put a lot, the most bang for our buck that we can with that funding. Next slide, please. Another fun project that we did over the wintertime is we resurfaced the tennis courts, not only the 4 at City Park, but the 1 at Skatepark, and we also included 4 pickleball stripes courts at City Park in those back 2 courts. So there's now 4 pickleball courts striped with recreation, obtained some nets for pickleballers. They're put to the side, and then now they're multi-use courts now at City Park. And then the 1 tennis court at Slockett got resurfaced, and so they're nice and clean, good traction, and we received lots of positive comments from the tennis court players on this project. Good fun project. Next slide, please. Okay, so proposed projects for future years. That's all the projects that we did for fiscal year 20. So for future years, obviously we continue to look at the needs evolving based on usage and time. We can make adjustments to the rehabilitation plan from year to year, but projects are generally projected 4 to 5 years out. Prioritize are finalized as the budget year gets closer to see what is really needed for next year and what does the funding look like for next year. Higher priority projects are placed higher on the list and monitored to make sure these projects or multiple projects are still the highest priority when the next fiscal year begins. Next slide, please. Okay, so a project that we'd like to see continue in the future would be phase 2 for City Park. So we'd like to look at doing some more fields, possibly minor field and T-ball field with the LED lighting. Next slide, please. And some other projects that we look at in the future years would be, for example, like continue with DG trail repairs and parking lot striping like we did this year, but just continuing that. Parking lot repairs at Memorial Park and City Park. Playground replacements at Sugar Mill and Meadow Lakes Park. Those playgrounds are getting on the older side. Complete park renovations at Mesquite Park. Lighting, fencing, landscaping, and pathway renovations at First Colony Park. Colony Park Lake Boardwalk and Tower Deck rehabilitation. And City Park lighting phase 3. Next slide, please. And with that, I'd like to take any questions that you may have. Hey, Barbara, I think you're muted.
Pardon me, my phone rang and I forgot I had muted it. We'll begin with Vice Chair Ho-Jin Lim.
So the list of all the projects that you did in 20, so all those encompass, I mean, you used that 200,000 for all those projects. Is that right, William?
That is correct.
Wow, that's impressive. You did that's efficient. I mean, the way you use that 200,000, because typically the money goes really quick, especially with you contracting out. But that's fantastic. So there's a lot of list on that improvements for the 20.
It helps when you can do some of the projects in-house, and my guys were very efficient with that. But yes, sir. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you, Ho-Jin. Heather Gillen.
I have no comments except keep up the great work.
Thank you, Heather. Joan Hanson.
I say the same thing as Heather. Ho-Jin, great job on using all that money. Can you work on my budget, please? Just kidding.
Sure.
Thank you, Joan. Kelsey Johnson.
Yeah, I echo everyone else, and I'm just really glad that you've also heard some accolades from the residents, you know, giving you feedback, saying great job on the tennis courts and the pickleball courts. It looks great.
Thank you,
Kelsey. Kelly Lowe.
Great job. And just to throw it in there as an ecologist biologist, those LED light replacements for the sports fields are so much better for wildlife than the old-fashioned, energy inefficient, indiscriminately spread lights. So if for some reason anyone asks about it, say, oh, it's good for the animals too. So yeah, good job.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Kelsey. Andy Pan.
No comment, but good job. Good job. That's it.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Andy. Tracy Pipes.
Great job. And I love the sports lights at City Park. I know the other fields are going to be wanting those soon. No other comments.
Thank you. And yes, they are.
Yeah.
Kelly Reynolds.
Good job on all of it, and I especially like Eldritch Park's playground. Thanks.
It's one of my favorites.
Thank you, Kelly. And I'd just like to add that, William, I hope you'll pass along all these comments to your staff, because they're an incredible bunch of folks who, like the postman, whatever the weather is, they're out there doing what they need to do. And we sure appreciate they're making recreation so accessible to all of our residents, depending on the age. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Barbara. I will.
Good. We'll move on then to the next item. C, review of and discussion on, I apologize. Moving on to item 4, director report. Park topics, upcoming events, recap of March and April. Joe Chesser, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Barbara. It's been difficult time kind of with like everybody's going through this. It's kind of challenging in the workplace. I am happy to say we have been able to make some good progress on some projects. One of the projects from the bond election in 2013 was the road and trail connection at the Brazos River Park. It'll connect up Sugarland Memorial Park to the Brazos River Park area. So people will be able to drive and then walk on a paved trail and connect those two parks together. As you know, Brazos River Park's a little difficult to access now, especially since the Brazos River turnaround got closed. So it's been a challenge to get people there. So this road will make a connection between the two parks. And where we are right now is we're just now finishing up the design on it. And one of the key elements to the design of that project is we have to go through across a pretty large channel that comes out of the University of Houston property and drains down into the Brazos River. So we're working on the engineering of that. We've got that just about finalized, and we're planning to go out to bid and hopefully award that this summer, which would mean probably breaking ground late summer or early fall. So our fingers crossed that we get good bids in on that. And that's a project we're really looking forward to. Also, Funlin's been really busy design-wise on working with a project in conjunction with Public Works and TxDOT on re-landscaping plans for the Highway 59 area and Highway 6 area through Sugar Land. And this will kind of go along with the banners and flags project, just to enhance the beauty of the landscaping along Highway 59. And this is all going to be funded by TxDOT. So the city's kind of taking advantage of some funding that TxDOT's making available for beautification in and around the city. So she's been real involved in doing that. And so that's keeping her busy during the pandemic issues. One project that we completed and was going to be kind of a key focus of our Memorial Day event was the eagle sculpture that we did along with the Legacy Foundation at Sugar Land Memorial Park. It goes back to one of the original projects that we identified to memorialize veterans at the Sugar Land Memorial Park. Fundraising was done, really spearheaded by the Legacy Foundation with former Mayor Jimmy Thompson. And then we had a very generous donation from E.E. Reed Construction, helping us build the foundation for the eagle. The eagle was it's a bronze sculpture that was developed by an artist in Wimberley, and finished that back in about January, February. And we got it just completed before really everything from COVID-19 struck. Our staff also helped as far as doing the landscaping, the lighting, and irrigation on the project. In the director's report that was sent out in your packet, there's a nice photograph of that eagle. And I said we wanted to make that a focal point of Memorial Day this year. But Memorial Day, we're going to handle just a little bit differently than when we typically would. And we're going to manage it primarily through a video with council members and members of the military, providing a vocal and visual Memorial Day ceremony this year. And we'll be rolling out some more information on that as we go along. Two of the things, and we touched on this a little bit earlier, was some of the virtual classes that have been going on for primarily our seniors, but we're also trying to reach out to families and provide some interesting things and classes and things for kids to do at home. Trisha's done a really great job of providing some things online, interesting things for people to do and suggestions. And one of the segments that she's been doing is peaceful moments in the parks, and she's going out and taking video of various locations in our park system and then posting those on Facebook. And we've gotten really good feedback from our Facebook followers and all of our social media followers on those. I think it's really introducing some parks to other folks that maybe haven't seen them, so it builds some interest in the parks. And just in general, we've been amazed at how busy and packed the parks have been during the stay-at-home orders, that everybody's staying close to home, but they're really getting out and enjoying the nice weather, getting out in the parks. We've had assistance from Sugar Land PD to kind of make sure that people are not gathering, they're keeping their social distance. And so people have been doing a great job of following those kind of directions from state and local government. We can go on to the next slide. Next slide. Okay. This was just a skate park, which William touched on pretty thoroughly. We're kind of anxious to be able to get it open. I know the kids are ready to get out and start using it. So this was a really big accomplishment, and William and staff did a really good job on it. Next slide. This is a project we've been working on for a while. This is in the T.E. Harmon Center. We had a very generous donation from two of the members at the Harmon Center. It's a couple that's two doctors, Dr. and Dr. Kramers, and they've been longtime members of the center. They gave a donation specifically for the addition of fitness equipment. Them both being doctors, they're very interested in making sure people have the opportunity to exercise, especially our seniors. So this is a room that was within the senior center that was primarily an area for desktop computers. And so when the center first went in, obviously desktop computers were very common and everybody really liked using them, and that was sort of the mainstream computer. Well, over the last 10 years, most people have migrated more to laptops or tablets. So we felt like this was an opportunity to kind of re-envision this space and make it a more active space. At the same time, part of their donation has gone to being able to provide laptops, which we believe seniors will really enjoy that, because I think they will become more interactive with each other and learning more about using the computers by being able to share with each other at the bar area or the pool table area or some of the other spaces in the center that are more active than this location. So we went in and added, there's these 4 pieces of equipment. We've got a treadmill, a stepper, and then like a seated cycle, basically 2 seated cycles. So it's all equipment that's very geared towards seniors and their ability to be able to actively use these and get some exercise, but not equipment that would be, overly difficult on joints and their bones and things. So it's not completely finished yet. We have some plans to bring in some graphics into the room and kind of liven it up a little bit more. There's going to be some seating area in there, and there's still part of the room is still a bookshelf, and it's got a lot of books and magazines and things. So we think it'll be a really popular area for the seniors. During the closure of the senior center, it actually kind of worked out well for us because we were able to get in and do this work. We had to totally redo the flooring to make it a soft exercise type flooring and redo the walls. Kind of an interesting backstory on this. The exterior wall right outside the wall you're looking at on this photograph got run into. A car ran into it and kind of damaged the wall. So while the project was being done to repair the wall, we were also able to incorporate this work on converting the room over to the fitness area in the center. So we think the seniors will be really excited to see this when they return to the center. And we were happy to be able to get it all done while the center was closed and have kind of a new element for them when they return, hopefully in not too long from now, but we haven't made that determination yet. It might be one of the last things we open here in the department due to, the concerns with over 65 being more prone to the effects of the COVID-19. Next slide. As I mentioned before, Memorial Day, typically we have a very nice ceremony at Memorial Park with speakers. A lot of times we have a display of military vehicles, a flyover from airplanes, and we've incorporated in the past some singing, patriotic music, artist work during the kind of a performance artist painting a mural during the ceremony itself. So unfortunately this year, with gathering and social distancing still being an issue, we've determined the best way that we can recognize Memorial Day is through a tribute to our fallen military personnel. Through a video, we'll be inviting people out to the memorial to pay tribute to fallen military people. And we'll also include messages from mayor and city council and people that, past members of our events, like some of the soldiers and that have been there to present at the Memorial Day ceremony. We're currently also looking at what we would be able to do for 4th of July. Some cities and organizations have already canceled their 4th of July ceremony celebrations. We're looking at the possibility of still having our 4th of July fireworks, but probably with a modified plan from what we've done in past years, because of in past years we've had to have people shuttle to the location, so shuttle buses wouldn't be appropriate this year. So we're looking at other opportunities, maybe some sort of a parking lot party gathering where people could still distance somewhat, but we could fire off some fireworks. But those are all still in the works right now. We'll provide more information as that goes along and as it moves forward. So those are our plans coming up for the summer. We still may be able to do movie night or some food truck parties on the plaza by Smart Financial, but those are still being looked at, and we'll just see if that opportunity arises as we move forward and more governor's orders come forward determining what the social distancing and gathering restrictions will be. Just kind of a one final note that was kind of interesting, that the Texas State Fish Hatcheries, as part of the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, brought out 8,000 fingerling largemouth bass to put in the Memorial Park Lake, just as a fish stocking. So they will be small, but with 8,000 of them, we think they will grow to be some nice sized fish, and will really enhance the fisherman's experience out at Sugar Land Memorial Park. Next slide, please. With that, I can close, and I would be happy to answer any questions anybody has about anything. Barbara, back to you.
Okay, beginning with our Vice Chair, Ho Jin Lim.
No questions from me, but I would like to say, Joe, thank you and your staff, and to really the entire city of Sugar Land, going through this and continue to work and keeping up with the city despite the COVID stay home order and whatnot. And I know it's hard for everyone, but again, thank y'all for doing all the work that y'all are continuing to do.
Thank you, Ho Jin. Leather Gillen.
I have no questions, and just want to say I am grateful that we have such nice, wonderful parks, because I have taken advantage of going to those during this time. So thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Joan Hanson.
I'd also like to say thanks for everything that the city does, and it is an unusual time. And I vote for the July 4th, stay in your car and watch the fireworks. Bring your own picnic.
Oh, great idea.
Thank you. And good seeing everybody.
Thank you, Joan. Kelsey Johnson.
Yeah, I really appreciate all that the City of Sugar Land has been doing too, and your staff, just for the dedication. And I'm really excited. You know, it gives us hope as we look toward the future and we celebrate some of these wonderful projects that will come to completion. I'm especially excited about the connection between Memorial Park and Brazos River Park. That's going to be so convenient, and will lengthen our walking and our biking through that area. So that also helps the health of our community. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Kelsey. Kelsey Lowe.
Just echoing what everyone else has been saying, I'm amazed at how much stuff you guys have been able to do in spite of all the crazy difficulties that have been going on. And I certainly know that it's not just us, it's the entire community of Sugar Land has been appreciating it. I've been hanging out a lot at Cullinan Park. And my goodness, trying to stay socially distanced is challenging because everyone is out there enjoying the beautiful weather and nature. And thankfully, most people are being really responsible. And it certainly wouldn't have been possible without the infrastructure and all the work that's going into it. So again, heartfelt thanks.
Thank you, Kelsey. Andy Van.
Thank you for all that you do. seriously. And then looking through all the stuff that you said, Joe, especially going through with the eagle sculpture at the landing right there. I want to go check it out. This hasn't been out yet. And like some people, I haven't been able to go to the parks yet. That's been stuck at home working most of the time. But yes, I need vitamin D. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Tracy Pipes.
Sorry. Hi, I appreciate everything that y'all do, and I appreciate all of you members of the Parks Board. It's been so much fun to get to hear everybody today, and I'm looking forward to enjoying the parks some more and all the updates.
Thanks, Tracy. Kelly Reynolds.
Just another round of thanks, Joe and team, and Barbara and Trisha, everybody that's keeping us together through all this. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kelly. And I'd also like to congratulate the department for the Houston Galveston Area Council Award that you received for your work in Cullinan Park Phase 1. Congratulations. And question for Joe. On the 5 donor benches, are those in Memorial Park?
I may have to defer to William. Him and his staff always install them, so he probably knows better than I do exactly where they've gone. William, do you remember or no?
Sure, yeah. Really sporadic. Memorial Park is definitely popular for the donor benches, but I think one of them went to Park at the Levee, another one's on its way for Park at the Levee. We installed one at Sugar Lakes. One went to Eldridge. I think one went to Memorial, just kind of really sporadic throughout the park system. It's been popular lately, the donor benches and donor trees.
That's wonderful. And I don't know if it's appropriate to put that on our website or Facebook pages where all of these donor parks are, because that's really touching that people are wanting to honor friends or family that way. It's really nice. And Trisha,
to add in on that just briefly, Trisha's started doing a kind of a certificate to the people who do a donor bench or tree, just so they'll have something. It includes a picture and a certificate acknowledging their donation to the department. So we felt like that was her idea. It was a nice touch to add that in there. And I just wanted to say, this meeting went really, really smooth. I was amazed. I didn't know we'd be able to get through it so well. I thought we'd have some glitches here or there. So hats off to everybody for being on. And thank you, Thomas and Natalie with the City Secretary's office for getting us through a pretty seamless meeting, our first Zoom meeting.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And I just wanted to say, Tricia, thank you for the initiative that you've been taking. And Kimberly, your staffs are amazing. I've really had a good time with those Zoom classes being offered through those very generous instructors who are volunteering even more during this time that we can still exercise. It's pretty cool. There being no further business before the group, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Oh,
I second the motion.
okay. Ho Jin Lim motion to adjourn, and it was seconded by Joan Hanson. Our meeting of May 12th has adjourned, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.